Good afternoon, Dr. Mack. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
All right. The system trying to cause some technical difficulties today, but we have too much important information to allow anything like that to happen.
Yes, ma'am. We can't have that.
Have that. It's so good to see you today.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Miss April.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover today. We have, of course, your wonderful COVID-19 updates from our most trusted and reputable source. Everybody, for those of you who don't know, this is Dr. Winston D. McIver Jr. of Waccamaw Primary Care. He is owner of Waccamaw Primary Care and is giving us COVID-19 updates every week. We've been doing this since April 3rd or so. So we're in about our 17th week or so of COVID-19 updates. And I tell you, it gets more intriguing every single time. And so we have a lot of information to cover today. And then after that, we're going to slide into our special guest segment. We're going to be talking with Ms. Joy Bonds, who is the owner of Tutor. And it's a very interesting concept that she has that basically is a solution to help students and parents, anyone, to understand more about technology and how to productively use these platforms. But particularly today, Joy is going to talk to us about how it all is relative and impacts what's going on with virtual learning, and the fact that, when school districts reconvene this fall, there's going to be a lot of online learning and virtual learning going on, and parents and students just need to get ready. So we're going to talk about some of the, challenges that exist, and also some solutions that may help them feel a little bit more comfortable with the process, because, it is going to be a part of our regular process for some time to come. I just want to remind all of our viewers that you can post your comments or any questions you have to our thread on Facebook. You can also post it to our thread on YouTube. Thank you for watching on both of those platforms. And we will moderate those questions and comments to our special guests during the special segment. But also, if you have questions regarding COVID-19, and the updates that Dr. McIver is propagating, then, you can certainly ask those questions at that time. So we'll just kind of kick it off with Dr. Mack giving us some numbers. And that's usually how he kicks off the segment.
Thank you, April. As usual, we'll start off with what's going on in the past week. Worldwide, the number of cases in the last 7 days have gone from 14 million cases to right under 16 million cases. The number of deaths in the world have gone from right around 595,000 to around 640,000. In the United States, specifically, the number of cases COVID-19 have gone from 3.7 million to right around 4.2 million. And the number of deaths have gone from around 140,000 to right around 148, a little better than 148,000. Specifically in the United States, the number of cases have gone from, specifically in South Carolina, the number of cases have gone from 64,000 to up around 78,000. And the number of deaths in South Carolina have gone from a little over 1,000 to right under 1,400 deaths in South Carolina. Now, specifically, Horry County, the number of cases in the last week have gone from a little over 1,000. In Horry County have gone from around 6,300 cases to right around 7,300 cases. And the number of deaths in Horry County have gone from 79 to 101. Now, I do want to mention this. In Horry County has the third highest number of total cases in the state. Horry County has the third highest number of total cases and the third highest number of active cases, only behind Charleston County and Greenville County. Also, Georgetown number of cases have gone from 911 to 1,071 in the last week, and the number of deaths have gone from 10 to 13 in Georgetown County. And in Marion County, the number of cases have gone from 349 to 436, and the number of deaths have gone from 10 to 12. Now, a couple things are still clear and still obvious here. Number one is that the hospitals around here are really having major issues with the number of positive cases that they're having. So much so to the point where the National Guard has actually been called in to some of the hospitals to give some relief. A number of the employees, a number of the physicians have come down with COVID, and so they have had to have backup from the National Guard to get help with that. There's still a major concern about the supply chain in the United States, with shortages on PPE, masks, gowns, gloves, which is of major concern. That it will continue to be an issue, particularly as months, more months to come. There's also been more talk about neurologic symptoms that patients are having post-COVID. In other words, having issues with memory, balance, muscle strength, weakness, weeks and weeks and weeks after being infected with COVID. We also have just seen that, the politicians that be, particularly on the Republican side, have kind of seen what's going on here. And so now it's almost like it's been an awakening that now they're not going to have the Republican National Convention in Florida, which is a definite hotspot. And Miami is considered now to be the new epicenter for COVID-19. We still have issues with positivity rates. Still in South Carolina, our positivity rate is above 20%, which means the number of people tested compared to the number of people that are positive. Ideally, we want that positivity rate to be less than 10, and even better if it was less than 5. But right now in South Carolina, we're still looking at 20% positivity rate. Okay, so I think we've got some slides now, April. Okay, so this slide came from Johns Hopkins by way of CNN for disclosure. And the interesting thing about this slide is we're seeing how fast these numbers are growing. In other words, it took 99 days to get to 1 million cases. It took 43 more days to get to 2 million cases. It took 28 days to get to 3 million cases. And over the last 15 days, we've gone from 3 million to 4 million cases, which is really staggering. So again, next slide talks about the map, the United States over the past 7 days. Again, from July the 8th to July the 14th, as you see, the darker the number, the higher the number of cases that have been seen in the last 7 days. South Carolina is in that highest bracket there, but as is majority of the Southeast, as you see, and California and Arizona. So the southern states are really getting hit hard. Part of the reason for that is that a number of those states did not close down like they needed to, or did not show the kind of caution that needed to be shown to combat COVID-19. Next slide kind of gives a hot spot of the United States. Basically, as you see again, the Southeast, pretty much, those states, the darker states indicate the more cases of COVID-19 that's being seen and being treated and being documented. Next slide. So on this slide, basically what it is, the gist of the slide talks about the number of new cases per day. Now, this slide came from Johns Hopkins. And basically what happens is I only included the last from July the 10th to July the 21st to see how the numbers were increasing. As you see, July the 10th was a little over 64,000 new cases, up to July 19th, where there was right over a little over 74,000. And there's a drop off there. And part of the reason it's believed that the drop off is there is because a lot of these state labs are now being backlogged with getting these reports out. I've had patients that have called me that have said, Doc, I got my test 14 days ago and I still don't have my results. And I explained to them that the state labs are backlogged. And so that's what's happening. So I don't think that there's any decrease in number of cases. I think it's just a decrease in number of cases being reported for those reasons. But they are going up. And, unfortunately, as we're talking about back in April, where we were talking about, 17,000 cases 15,000 cases a day. We're up to hitting close to 75,000 cases a day. So this is definitely, important. And the other important thing, and we'll see this slide a little bit later, is that, the thought is that, well, people are just, there's just more tests being done, but that's not what's going on. This virus is spreading, and that's as a result of, factor of hospitalizations, which we'll see a chart on that a little bit later. But next slide. So basically what this looks at is total cases per state. And as we see, California, Florida, and Texas are definitely leading the pack. These are total cases per day. They did put New York City in here as number 4. The numbers there are decreasing, but for statistical purposes, they did treat New York City as a state because it was the initial epicenter / hotspot. But as you see, these states are rising and the number of cases are high. Next slide. The next one, we're looking at specifically at states and where the new cases are increasing. And as you see this graph, it's showing, where these states are going up. Some of the states like Louisiana did have a drop off there, but as you see, it's starting to go back up. Mississippi's gone up, Nevada's gone up, Alabama's gone up, South Carolina certainly has gone up, Texas as well as Tennessee. So this just shows new cases and where they're increasing. Next slide. This is case rate. So a lot of times to be able to compare apples to apples, you actually have to kind of look at the numbers statistically. So this would be case report per 100,000 people. And when you do that, you can kind of have a better idea when you're comparing states to states, because some states are larger than others. But when you have a factor of a case rate per 100,000, it kind of helps you level the playing field to see actually what's going on. And as you see, New York City still with leading the pack with 2,600, but South Carolina is falling right in there at 1,476. Now this is not a number that we want to go up on, but as you see, it has made the list here in case rate per 100,000. Okay, and that's significant when you got a smaller state compared to a New York City or some New Jersey or some other states. And this is the death rate per state. So per 100,000 deaths, New York City was at 279, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So the other graph was on case reports. This is on case deaths, okay? Just to kind of give you an idea who has the most deaths from COVID-19. Okay, next slide. This is where new deaths are increasing. And as you see, the steeper the line, the more it goes up linearly, the more deaths that you're seeing. In Arizona, and it's in the last 14 days, and South Carolina is going straight up. Again, as you see states like Louisiana, they did have a drop off, but they're going back up. Florida continues to rise, Texas rise, Alabama was rising, a little dip down there, but it's still rising. But Arizona, South Carolina, Florida, and Texas, I mean, those are major, major issues where people are dying per capita, per 100,000 people. Next slide. Okay. And this just gives you a little bit more information here about deaths in the last 7 days per 100,000 residents. Arizona's first, South Carolina is second. And again, that's concerning, that's worrisome, because again, we don't have as many people as some of these other states have. So having a graph like this and numbers like this shows that it's really affecting our state significantly. Now, this is part of the problem. This is part of a big problem. This is part of the reason why South Carolina is up amongst the leaders in a lot of these categories, which we don't want to be leaders in. Studies show that South Carolina is the least responsible state in the fight against COVID. The least responsible. Okay. You see some other states that are there, Alabama, Oklahoma, Idaho, Michigan, Illinois. You see some other states that are there, but South Carolina is number 1, unfortunately. Another study showed that South Carolina has the 8th fewest COVID virus restrictions. Study compiled here showed that adults are wearing face masks about a little over a third of the time. People staying home when possible about 18% of the time. And we're still significantly lower in tests per 100,000 residents. So those are part of the reasons why South Carolina is, amongst the leaders in cases, deaths per population. Next slide. Again, this is interesting that I saw, and this actually came from Johns Hopkins as well. In states where there were 16 states had no mask mandates at all. They had an 84% increase in cases over the last 2 weeks. States that had mandatory mask wearing laws, 11 of those states had a 25% decrease in cases over the last 2 weeks. It's simple. It's simple math. You do the right thing, the numbers get better. You don't do the right things, the numbers are going to get worse. But this is part of the issue that we know in the medical field as to why these issues are happening in the states that are not, strongly encouraging and enforcing mask wearing are going to have more cases. And those are where the people are dying as well. Additionally, even when you're looking at nationally, we're looking at the two countries that have the highest number of cases, the United States and Brazil, and both of those presidents really have not had strong advocacy for mask wearing and did not really take this serious to a large degree. Next slide. Now, this is the reason why we know this virus is spreading. So when you look at the U.S. COVID hospitalizations, July 22nd was a record high number. So April 15th, it was high. And a lot of that had to do a lot with New York City and Louisiana and Chicago and Detroit and a lot of other cities, Seattle, Washington. But as you see, the number of hospitalizations started going down. But we're seeing a sharp increase now in the number of hospitalizations that are there, which tells us that the disease is spreading. Point blank, period. Okay, next. So, these are simple things, but, again, I want to add them into the slides. On the left side of this first graph, on the left side, lowers the risk. On the right side, higher the risk. If you're wearing masks, of course, it's going to be a lower risk. You're not wearing masks, of course, it's going to be a higher risk. Getting outside will lower your risk. It's getting air, fresh air, as opposed to being in a room where there may not be much circulation, being around people, that can increase your risk. As far as people that you're around, as far as you're having distancing, that lowers your risk. Closer congregation and with more people will increase the risk the more people that you're around. Okay. Also, the last slide talked about, simple things, washing your hands, when to do it. And these things we know already, after you come from outside, after you come from pumping gas, after you come from the grocery store, what have you, those things you need to make sure that you're washing your hands and washing them for at least 20 seconds. Hand sanitizer, at least 60% alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, the practical things that we've always known have not changed. Pretty much a summation of what you said is that cases are rising, contrary to what some may say and some may believe. And I have a couple of questions. Some of them have come from the thread, but just, some things I've seen in the past couple of days as well. Now, there was an article and I sent it to you, probably a little late for you to review it, but basically the headline, I guess, implied that the cases in the past 2 weeks have decreased. And is that a true, is that true reporting, or is that just due to backlog?
I don't believe it. I believe it's due to backlog.
I agree.
I've been having more patients calling me over the last 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, saying that it's taking longer for them to get their results back.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these people have been quarantining for 2 weeks before they even got results back. I have about 35 patients so far that have tested positive for COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And thank God all of them lived. But the problem is they're being backlogged. Mm-hmm. And so they're not getting these tests out. So as that slide we showed earlier, where the numbers were going up of the cases, and then it kind of seemed to kind of dip off, that's not because this is getting better. It's just because they're backlogged.
They're backlogged.
And an example for that is that the number of hospitalizations are still going up.
That's right. Yeah, I know someone personally who went out to the Conway Rec Center for a COVID testing event that was going on there, and that was now more than 10 days ago. And that person still has not received their test. They called the center, which was a laboratory based in Atlanta, and can't get through or whatever. But, doing some research online, basically it's a backlog. It's just that's what's happening.
The thing is that I'm glad that a lot of these places are doing testing, because more testing needs to be done. The problem that most physicians have, including myself, is that when people don't get these test results back in a timely manner, it's almost impossible to do contact tracing.
Mm-hmm.
The basis of contact tracing is to identify who has the condition, in this case COVID-19, identify it as fast as you can so you can get to who they've been around. So that way you can contact trace and find out who they've been around and who they've been around and they've been around.
Exactly.
You can't do that if it's taken 10 to 14 days or greater to get these results back. You can't, it's almost impossible to do contact tracing.
Is it possible for a sample to expire?
Good question. I don't believe these samples are expiring. There is a shelf life on how soon that test has to be run. But I think the problem is the test to run. I just don't think they're having enough people to input the data fast enough.
That could be an issue.
Get it to where it needs to be. They're not going to let them sit long because they can't just sit like that.
And
sit like that.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So, Dr. Mack, how reliable do you believe the data to be, considering the fact that now we have some restrictions on the transparency? I'm sure the information you pulled today is highly reliable. There were references to the CDC, and you pull from some reputable media sources, but do we really know what the numbers are?
I believe they're reliable, and I believe if anything, they're underestimated. So again, there is some question about numbers and this and that, but even if it's 5,000 people off, it's still not going to change the positivity rate that much. It's still not going to change the death rate that much when you're talking about upwards of 150,000 people dead. Because for the tests that quote unquote may not be right, there's thousands of people who died at home and in hospitals before they even got tested.
True.
Which was a suspected COVID death.
Absolutely. Okay. So has the CDC updated their guidelines?
They have updated the guidelines. A lot of it has to do with asymptomatic exposure. So in other words, if you've been around somebody, but you have no symptoms, then instead of the 14-day quarantine, they're saying 10 days. Again, I'm still 14 days. I mean, what the CDC gives are recommendations, but again, different physicians have different feelings on certain things. That's just recommendations. I certainly wouldn't recommend anything less than what they said. If I'm going to make an error, it's always going to be on the side of caution. It's always going to be on the side of doing too much. So my feeling is still 14 days, because not everybody's going to fall in that textbook window, and so again, there's some people that have no symptoms at all, but they still could be viral shedders. So I'm still of a belief of 14 days. But again, that's what it is.
Okay. All right. So there was a question in the thread about reporting. And the question is basically, who do businesses report to, or how do you report a business where there's a positive case, but obviously it appears that management is not doing anything regarding closure for cleaning or even quarantining other employees? Where should a person start with that particular type of complaint? Someone suggested DHEC. That's what I was going to say, DHEC.
Because they're the ones that should be doing it, are doing the majority of contact tracing around. But again, the problem is that if these people aren't getting tests back in a timely manner, then, it makes it really tough to do contact tracing.
Mm-hmm. So, as you know, on Monday on the Whittemore Community Magazine, Darryl Brown was our special guest and talked about, some plans that they have for Horry County schools for reopening in light of our COVID situation. And I know that there's some things that Horry County schools is still working out. And I've been in contact with the school district to see if we can get that information and understand that it won't be until after August 3rd when they, I think, will officially release their plans as far as how, classes will be conducted and what their measures will be to protect everyone and keep everyone safe. But just in light of the fact that we are approaching school openings, what are some of the best things that schools can do at this point just to make sure that even if they have a population that wants to return to campus for learning, that they can be safe while they're there? What do schools need to consider?
I think they need to follow the data and not the dates.
Follow the science.
I think what's happening is that there's too many people that are stuck on dates and wanting this date and that date. We want to do it by this date. You can't do that. This is science. This is not anything science has never been concrete. It's always abstract. Whenever you try to make science an exact thing, it doesn't happen. The body's not an exact thing. God didn't create the body to be an exact thing. There's always variables, always. And so, that's one thing I try to teach the medical students that I train. There's no exact science to this. You follow the data. You follow the people that know what they're doing, that they studied this stuff. I don't know why politicians all of a sudden have become the leading experts in science. That baffles me. It baffles me how you can be a politician one day and you wake up the next day and you know more than somebody who's been spending their life doing this. So there's too many politicians talking. I love my politician friends, but everybody needs to stay in their lane.
Say that again for people in the back.
Stay in their lane. The best advice I can give Horry County schools is to follow the data. Follow the data and not the dates.
Exactly. Follow the data, not the dates. All right. So, Dr. Mack, is there anything else you want to share with us before we take a little break and go into the second part of the program?
There is one thing that I kind of want to bring up, and I don't know if we need to go into it right now. I mean, if you want to go, but
let's make it happen.
Okay. So here's what happens. Okay. I'm about to say something that I don't know how people are going to take it, but this is the hottest thing that's going on in science, in medicine right now. The question is about this notion of this virus just disappearing. I've heard Trump say that several times. I've heard patients ask those questions of me multiple times. Let me tell you what scientists, physicians are now thinking, because this virus is not going to go away. Okay, let me say this. The amount of disruption, the amount of change may not always be the same, but we're now of the belief that this virus is not going to go away. Just like we get an annual flu vaccine, we get an annual pneumonia, we get pneumonia shots, we get these shots at certain intervals. It is now believed that COVID will likely be here to stay. And let me tell you two reasons why. Okay. Number one, flu vaccines were first started in the 1930s. Okay. They were started on large scales in around 1945, the flu vaccine. At that time, the thought was, if you got a flu vaccine, you can eradicate the flu. There'd be no more talk about the flu. Well, guess what? We're still having 30 to 40,000 people a year dying from the flu, despite having a vaccine, despite having vaccines that are updated annually. So guess what? That flu virus is not going away. It's not going anywhere. Despite having vaccines updated every year, it's not going away. We now believe that COVID will not go away. It will be just like the flu in the regards of being something to deal with every year. Now, it may not cause as much destruction. It may not cause as much disruption 10 years from now, but it still will be here. That's kind of the overwhelming thought right now. The second reason why we think that that's going to happen is because a study that was some information, it was a small study that was just published this week that showed that patients who had COVID-19 within weeks had no antibodies. Now that's important because antibodies are there to protect us. If you've got somebody that's been tested that was positive and within a month they have no antibodies, what's happening? We call that rapid decay. There have been 2 small studies that were introduced this week. More studies have to be done on it, larger population, larger sample. But in one of the studies, it showed that the antibodies decreased by half every 73 days. Every 73 days, half of those people had no antibodies. The other study showed that 10% of people had antibodies undetectable within weeks after showing symptoms. And within 3 months, only about 10% of those people had antibodies present. What the heck is happening? Mm-hmm. The antibodies are decaying much faster than viruses that we know of, that we have known about in the past. What it probably means is that these viruses, these viruses are changing. They're having different genomic strains of COVID. So the body's fighting one version of it, and then there's another version that's happening. But when you don't have antibodies that are around long enough, people can potentially get infected a second time. Now, I've heard people say, I was positive 3 different times, but they got 3 different tests in a matter of a month. That could be the same positive test that you had from the beginning, but you're still shedding RNA and it still shows up as a positive test. So the overwhelming concern with this thing is that I don't think it's going away anytime soon. Okay. Now, do I think it will be as bad a year from now, 2 years from now? I don't necessarily believe that, but I believe that we will still be talking about COVID-19 in 2021, in 2022, in 2023. They may change the year. I don't know. But they may change from COVID-19 to COVID-20. I don't know. We'll still be talking about it a year from now.
Well, and then, of course, we're approaching the fall and getting into our cold and flu season when it's most prevalent. What kind of perfect storm would that create considering COVID-19?
It can be a disaster. And right now, CDC, Johns Hopkins, World Health Organization predict that there'll probably be close to 200,000 deaths by November 1st. They're predicting that at some point in time, we may start seeing numbers of 100,000 cases a day. Now, again, a lot of that has to do with backlog from the state labs. They're overworked, and I'm sure they are. But this is still an issue. The numbers are going up. The numbers are higher now than when schools were closed in March.
That's right.
The hospitalizations are higher now than they were in March.
And yet we're going in reverse in terms of what we're supposed to do lifestyle-wise and behavior-wise,
right?
Which, makes it even more uncertain and scarier when you consider everything that we're getting ready to do in the fall with returning to school. There's a few questions on the thread, Dr. McIver. One, what are some over-the-counter medications and vitamins that can help shore up our immune systems?
I mean, vitamin C of any type, fruits. Some people take elderberry. I take it. I was taking it. I don't take it as often as I did before. But elderberry, I do take my multivitamins, and those kind of things. Also, exercise can help out, and so that helps boost your immune system. Getting some vitamin D, getting outside, and getting some sunlight can help boost your immune system. Zinc can help do it. Antioxidants, vitamin A, C, and E can do it. Vitamin D. So definitely.
You can, actually consuming fresh fruits, vegetables that contain these vitamins and minerals also help as far as changing your diet. You talked about,
Definitely.
so, some foods that might help with that, especially antioxidant wise, berries, citrus fruits, I'm sure, that kind of thing. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. I love blueberries. I've been consuming them like crazy.
Very, very high in antioxidants. Very high. Very high.
Yeah, I'm turning into a Smurf. Probably I'll be blue before all this is over with. There's also a question about something called quercetin, or I hope I'm saying that correctly, Quercetin, that might help fight the virus. Have you heard of that?
There hadn't been any major studies that show that works. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but again, whenever I kind of advocate stuff, it has to be evidence-based medicine where there's lots of studies, lots of people in studies. I'm not saying it won't work, but yeah.
Okay. All right. And watching today is Etta Green Carter, who, of course, is a COVID-19 survivor. Her sister, also a COVID-19 survivor. And she's had quite a tremendous story to tell and testimonials regarding how this has impacted her family. And she comments that she has recovered from COVID-19 and is given plasma twice. How will she know if the antibodies are gone?
Tell her to call me.
Okay. You got that, Etta? He said, give him a call. And I think that, we try hard not to, I guess, muddy the waters or confuse people when we're talking about, certain types of tests, the testing for the actual virus versus the antibody test. And just just touch on that just for a moment so people really understand what the antibody test is all about.
Okay, there's three main types of tests. One of it is the viral test, which is what most people are getting, the nasal swab, and some of them are doing it in the mouth. That picks up viral particles. So if you've been exposed to the virus, that you will have viral particles that will be shared, and that's what that test picks up. There's also something called an antigen test, which is a rapid test, which picks up viral particles as well. That one's almost like if you go to your doctor and you get a mono test or you get a rapid strep test. It's picking up particles of the virus. That's picking up the virus. That tells you whether you have a recent infection. Okay, a recent infection. Whereas antibodies tell you whether or not you've been exposed or been infected at some time in the past. When you get exposed to a virus, let's say in this case the virus, your immune system will produce something called antibodies to help you fight off any repeat visitation, if you will, of the virus. Okay. And there's two different levels. There's one that's called an IgM. Without getting too technical, there's one called an IgM, which goes up over a matter of days to weeks. And there's one called an IgG antibody, which goes up from weeks to months. So that kind of gives you an idea roughly of when you were exposed. The problem is that in these two studies I mentioned earlier, and they were small studies that I mentioned earlier, some of these people are having decay of antibodies within 3 months. They're showing no signs of antibodies, but they had tested positive before, which you knew they had COVID-19. So that's the concern about why we're having such rapid decay in antibodies. Now, again, those two studies I talked about were patients that were milder, so they were not as sick as others, and they were small studies. So there are limitations to what I just said. However, that's kind of opened up a new Pandora's box to study this stuff on a larger scale.
All right. Well, again, we do appreciate all of you joining us today. We're having this discussion, as we always do, with Dr. Winston McIver Jr. of Waccamaw Primary Care. He is the owner of that practice and has been here with me for the past 17 weeks or so, giving COVID-19 updates to everyone, basically pulling together all of the research and talking to colleagues and just, fine-tooth combing the data to make sure that we understand in a more practical sense what this virus is all about and what we can do to protect ourselves. Also, what we're up against as these cases continue to increase. So, yeah.
And with one more question from my friend, Miss Melody Goff. Ask, how long does it take to get antibody testing results? And that typically takes anywhere between 3 to 7 days. Again, it depends on the backlog of the lab. It depends on the backlog of the lab. So again, right now, there's a whole lot of, and April, you and I have talked about this antibody stuff before, and I told you that we're not really looking at the antibodies so much so to tell whether you are protected or not, because were issues about antibody tests in the beginning. From the
I think people thought, that was the test to have, is the antibody test. Yeah.
But there were issues. We knew there were issues about that from the beginning. What the antibody tests really are looking at is what areas, specific areas, Horry County, have a higher number of antibodies. So, people with positive antibodies. So that means that that's considered probably a hot spot because there are more people that have been, affected. But with these antibodies decaying so fast, we don't really know how much we can rely on that. But we do know that antibodies should stay around for months, and in some conditions, years. So to say these things are decaying in 3 months, that's worrisome, because they were trying to get these immunity passports, where if you had antibodies, then they could let you travel here and travel there. If you showed that you had a test that was done and you were antibody positive, okay, I can get on this plane and I can go to Jamaica now. Well, if the antibodies are decaying fast, then how do we know that that you're still protected?
An interesting question just came up, and Joy is in a backstage. I promise you, Joy, we're going to get to you, but we always try to answer these questions, because you just never know what's going to happen from one week to the next. But Tori Grice has posed a question. Thank you for watching today, Tori. Does your blood type work with you to fight the virus?
I did see some stuff about that. However, there have not been any large studies to show that. So, for me to speak on that, whenever I give information, it's always evidence-based. I can always go somewhere and back up what I'm saying. There hasn't been any studies done to talk about blood type to any large degree.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been great so far. We do have a great segment, second segment coming up. So I just want you all to take a deep breath. Sit back, do not go anywhere. I'm counting. I know how many people are in this room, so don't leave. I'm actually going to play a little quick commercial, and then we'll come right back. We'll have Joy Bonds, Tech Tutor, talking to us about technology and virtual learning, getting us ready for education in a COVID world. We'll be right back.
Your child deserves the best in life. Grow through learning and positive moments. Caring through love, nurturing, and support. Security in a clean, safe environment. Your child deserves your neighborhood child care and development center. 1100 Creel Street, Conway, South Carolina. ABC certified and USAID approved. Call 843-248-0560 or 843-248-3584 for enrollment information.
Your neighborhood child care and development center is open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, enrolling children ages 6 weeks to 12 years old, serving Conway and all surrounding communities, offering after-school care with a professional, ethnically diverse staff. Your neighborhood child care and development center. Call today.
And we are back. Thank you all for staying with us. I know there was a couple of you who sashayed out of the room. Hopefully it was to get something to drink and maybe some popcorn, but you better come right back and get this great information. We're going to give Dr. McIver a moment to catch his breath and refresh himself, but we'll bring him into the conversation that we're about to have with Joy Bonds. And I just want to let everyone know that, we are able to share this information mainly because Dr. McIver is so willing to do this even though he has a very hectic schedule and he's very busy, and we've dedicated this time on Fridays at 4 p.m. just to bring you information. This is a service to the community, and we just want to make sure that everyone has the right information, the most accurate information possible. And we do appreciate you being here, and we would appreciate it even more if you would share the broadcast while you're watching. Share it to your pages so that everyone else can also view this information. We share it across social media, and it's also available on YouTube, but you can help us to spread this information that Dr. McIver has worked so hard to pull together. And I certainly would appreciate that as much as possible. Tanya DeWitt Green, you said you came back in the room. Oh, come back in the room, everybody. That's right. Come on in the room. And let's get ready to talk to Miss Joy Bonds. Joy, how are you today?
Hey, I'm fine. How are you?
You're so beautiful.
Thank
I just
you.
love, yes, you represent, and I appreciate that today. And Joy, of course, is the owner of Tutor. She's also an educator in the Georgetown County area. And she has a very unique idea that I have actually been following since this whole coronavirus outbreak. And she launched it. And I was like, you know what? That is interesting. I have not seen a platform where there's someone who's actually taken the time to talk to people about technology usage, mainly in the classroom for the homeschoolers, the online learning that had to take place whenever the schools were closed down and we had to all come home. And so Joy, very unique idea. And we definitely want to give you the platform today to talk about what you've been doing and some of the initiatives you're working on, but also just to have this conversation about the reality of virtual learning in COVID-19 world. So like Dr. McIver said, COVID is here to stay. So it's now, if we treat it as if it's now a part of our new normal, doing the things that we're supposed to do to just stay safe, but also now to shift learning towards a more digital platforms and using platforms and devices that we've never really had to embrace before. I think that we'll find that we can find some light at the end of the tunnel. So Joy, first of all, tell everybody a little bit more about who you are, and then let's get into this discussion.
Okay, so I am actually a high school chemistry teacher. And honestly, I kind of started this company or this project movement, whatever you want to call it, because I normally in the summertime am teaching some type of robotics camp or engineering camp somewhere. And that really provides extra funds for the summertime. Well, COVID-19, I couldn't do any of that. And so I had to kind of find a way to be creative. And then this kind of just came to birth one day, just sitting in my house, kind of brainstorming. And so Tutor, my goal is to make technology easy. That's my slogan or motto, making technology easy. When I would sit on the phone and make parent phone calls saying, hey, your child did not, turn in any assignments, he didn't sign on. And, kids are kids. And so some of the parents are like, well, I thought they said they signed on. And, there was just an extreme disconnect between parents, kids, technology, trying to use it. So this is kind of my way to help bridge that disconnect, per se. So that's what this is about.
And I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's most appropriate and on time. And it's definitely what parents and students will need to feel comfortable with the new methods of learning that are going to roll out from the various school districts. I think a lot of parents tend to feel a little intimidated by everything that they have to do in terms of, the digital connection, the Zoom meetings, the MS Teams meetings, the Google Classrooms, the this, the that, and the other. So you're attempting to kind of bridge the gaps. And also, I think a part of your work, if I'm not mistaken, based on my research, is all about also recognizing those digital inequities. And I like that term, digital inequities. And as we know, there are a lot of disparities that come across from community to community, ethnicity to ethnicity. And yet we also have to put a layer of digital inequity on top of all of that. So it's a really big area that could stand some resources, and you're providing one that will be extremely helpful for people as you try to navigate through this. So talk a little bit about that, the digital inequities and the disparities that you know of.
Well, we are very aware, especially in Georgetown, that we have lots of rural areas that do not get or don't even have the infrastructure there to even support broadband connections, etc. So we have to try to work together. And my initiative really is only putting a Band-Aid on what is an extremely large issue that is above, me. But my initiative, I'm working with a group of young adults, and we're trying to raise some money to provide families with like a basic technology package. And we're calling it Tech for the Tidelands. And the technology package would include a mobile hotspot, but it looks as if there is also a large scale initiative to provide school districts with hotspots for families that has just been released from the State Department. And I think there is supposed to be 100,000 hotspots that is going out. I was trying to read up on it last night. So, but my group is trying to do mobile hotspots, a personal laptop, some copy paper, and a printer for each family we're trying to do 10 families that apply to get it. And then I'm going to also provide just not tech support per se, but instructional technology support for the families. So if the family needs help with logging on, if the family needs help with trying to understand what their child is supposed to do, I'll be the person to contact and connect with these families to say, hey, you can call me. And that is of no charge to them. And I'm going to offer them that support until December, from August to December.
Okay. Does Georgetown County utilize Power School?
We do.
Okay. So I think that, some parents are like, well, I have to navigate Power School. And now you're asking me to navigate a Zoom meeting and other things. Where is a good starting point for parents to understand how to, I guess, embrace technology and not be so intimidated by it, for lack of a better term?
My first tip for parents is don't be afraid to ask for help. It is definitely a lot. It's overwhelming. When you have other kids, you have like 1,000 things going on at the same time. And then to have to sit there and try to navigate Power School, navigate Google Classroom, all of this, it's a lot. And so the first thing they have to do is not be afraid to ask for help. Some parents are prideful and don't want to seem like they don't know how to do something, especially in front of their children. But it is really okay to ask for help. That's like my number one tip for parents. After that, when you ask for that help, I need you to make sure you either write it down, ask for a copy of some notes, because it's going to be a lot. It's almost like me going to Dr. Mack and him giving me this whole report.
Exactly.
I'm like shaking my head like, yeah.
As soon as you walk out the door, you've forgotten everything you said.
Right.
Exactly.
Make sure you get a copy of it. Ask the person to email you a copy or a summary of what you guys talked about. Whatever it is, you need to be able to look back at that resource, because half of that information is going to leave your head as soon as that conversation is over. Point blank, period. The next thing is, if you had a question, 9 times out of 10, somebody else has that same question. Google will be your friend. Believe it. So if you want to know, how to navigate Power School, or how to, look up a student on Power School, whatever it is, type it into Google. You're going to try to find something. Something will come up. I need parents to also know that virtual classrooms that we are planning are not going to look the same as our e-learning that has happened in the past, or that we just left. E-learning was really a temporary thing that school districts had come up with for like hurricane days. And then with this extended time, it wasn't meant to be an extended type educational thing, but it became one. So know that we are trying to be more prepared. We're trying to get some professional development in to say, hey, this is how a virtual classroom is going to look. Because from what I understand, the main issue is, or one of the main issues, is that students don't have that teacher-student contact or connection. And if I'm meeting with a student every day online, I think it will ease some of that tension, because the student will get to know me that way versus me sending, these links, complete this assignment, read this, etc. So there will be some student-teacher interaction in there. And then I have three more tips for parents. Number one, keep a positive attitude. Please keep a positive attitude. If your kid is hearing you complain all the time at home about how horrible this system is, it's not going to help anybody. It is just, your kid is just not going to do well. So try to have a positive attitude. The next thing is keep lines of communications open. It is really easy for you to contact the instructor about your one child, then the instructors to contact you about the 50 kids that they have to contact. So if your child is doing okay, and I have 10 other kids that's not doing okay, to be honest, my attention, while it should be on all 11, I'm going to probably give the other 10 a phone call and then not give yours a phone call today because your child is doing okay, whereas I got to get these other 10. So make sure that you keep lines of communications open, check your email, make sure you respond, return phone calls. And then another thing is some teachers use like Google Voice or a third-party app to call. So answer weird numbers. It's not always a bill collector, I promise. I know.
You know how we hide from those numbers we don't know.
Right. I don't pick that up. It is not always a bill collector. Sign up for those communication apps. If I send a remind home to say sign up for this remind app, sign up for it. I won't kill your text messages out. I will only send very important information. And the last thing is please practice patience, parents.
Patience.
Please, because this is a learning curve for everyone. I've been teaching for a long time, 18 whole years. This is the very first time that I'm going to enter the school year and not physically be in a classroom space to meet the kids and talk to the kids. So please, it's a learning curve for everybody from top to bottom. Practice patience. So those are my tips for parents.
Well, I think those are excellent tips. And just want to, of course, incorporate some comments. Janet Lawrence Patton, she says, yes, e-learning and virtual learning are different. And, it's probably something you'll have to circle back and just kind of, give a little bit more information about, because I think that people tend to get caught up in definitions and terminology. And then after a while, it all starts to come together and they think it's one size fits all, but not so much. So, that's one of the good points. And then also, Sonia Street 4, she says, ask your child. The kids are all over technology. And I think that is absolutely the truth. I don't have any children who are in school now as far as, secondary or even post-secondary. But, the kids know more than the parents. If they know how to navigate your phone, which is a little mini computer, they can certainly help figure out. And that might even be the exciting part of the process, is trying to figure out how to navigate through these learning platforms, or, some of these the virtual platforms that they'll have to use. And then, so when it comes down to your experiences over the summer, I know that you were probably even doing some things before school adjourned. What are some of the challenges that students have as far as learning online? Have you been able to pinpoint some of those things?
Yes. The students, their challenges, number one, because I'm not in front of them guiding them, and they were so used to that connection, they had to be a little more resourceful and independent throughout the virtual or the e-learning experience compared to if they were in my classroom. They couldn't just walk over to my desk or call me to their desk. And so they lost that connection. And then they also lost the connection of having an immediate response to their question. So they lose interest. So if you email me today at 5:00 and I don't respond to you until 7:00 or even the next morning at 8:00, you've lost interest. I mean, the kids, they just don't want to do it. It's like, whatever, I already tried it. I'm not going to do it. So we have to figure out a way. And I think with the new structure, since we'll be online together, then I'll be able to answer questions right then. But that e-learning, it was tough to have them to respond back to the email and that kind of back and forth kind of thing. And then to even get them to actually, like, hey, y'all, let's have a Zoom meeting just to check in. Let's, have a lesson. It was kind of tough for them because I guess it was kind of new and they really didn't really feel it. They missed school. A lot of them, while they complain about being in school, y'all, the kids really like school. They really do. And so they just had to I think they have to just get used to it and embrace like everybody is saying, our new normal. We have to embrace it and make it work.
Absolutely. Sonia also brought up the point that, we have to encourage parents to make sure that they're notifying teachers or administrators when their phone numbers and their emails change, because I'm sure that has Joy's like, yes, preach. I'm sure that can stop all communication if you have if the numbers aren't accurate or the emails aren't accurate. So it's
really definitely, thank you, Sonia, because it's easy to do that when I'm in school, because I can call a kid to my desk and say, hey, your mama's number is not the same. Can I have a new number? Versus can get in touch with the child. Don't know how, what am I going to do? Just show up on their doorstep? They may not even be at the same house. I don't know.
Do you think that's what happened with the situation? At the beginning of the coronavirus situation, there were 30,000 students lost in missing in action. They said the number dwindled down to 10, which is still 10, that's one too many. So do you think that might've been a part of the problem too?
I think a lot of it was just poor communications, bad systems, old numbers in Power School, old addresses, because if you move, but you may not think to update your address at the guidance office or office or wherever you do it. So I do think that has something to do with the huge number that we first heard about.
Okay. All right. Janet also says students have, Google emails too. Parents need access to those emails to be able to monitor as they stay posted. So I know that that's that's a point of security and a very important point for you as well, right?
Well, in Georgetown County School District, our students don't have Google emails.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have emails, but they have Microsoft emails, actually.
Okay.
And to be honest, our students don't widely use their school email. I try to encourage it, but they don't. So I don't know if they don't want to do it because we can look at all their emails. We can monitor it. And I guess the parent would need to say, hey, I need your email password. I need it.
Absolutely. So, Joy, what else would you like to share with us as far as, some of the initiatives that are going on to support what you're doing and some of the efforts you making to close the gaps and to alleviate these disparities? I know that we have a long way to go, state of South Carolina, but it can be done. It can be done. But, we just have to be realistic about what we need to do and just, get the ball rolling. And I think the biggest thing now is really figuring out how to get everyone connected as quickly as possible, especially if something happens. And as Dr. McIver explained before, we start to see some increases in the coming months that will cause another shutdown or another quarantine situation. So, what else do you want us to know about what you're doing? And also, how can people help? What do you need them to do?
So first, let me also say that I actually rescheduled, because I knew I was coming on this after you called me. I rescheduled a free Facebook live event that I'm doing. It is Google Classroom for Parents. It's just a basic overview, and parents can come on and ask questions just so they can understand how Google Classroom works. I chose Google Classroom because that's what our district uses. There are so many platforms out there. But because the district I work in, uses that's what I picked. But it'll be Facebook Live. It's free. You can share it, join in, ask you questions, email them, etc.
When are you doing that?
That's on Tuesday at 7:00.
Tuesday at 7.
And it'll be Google Classroom for Parents. And I'm planning to host several different like Google Docs, Microsoft Word, how to use PowerPoint, just different little things that can get parents and students a little more prepped for online learning. That's the first thing. The second thing is we do have accounts, PayPal accounts and Cash App accounts for our Tech for Thailand's fundraiser for our computers. Our goal is to raise $3,000 to buy all of these tech packages for the 10 families we're trying to bless. And I'm working with a group, and it's called Act Now. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I am. I'm willing to volunteer services, and I just spoke to someone today about working with them for a virtual after-school program that they're trying to set up. And so that's the other effort. And so this is all kind of new for me. So I'm like, trying to figure things out. But those are my three main things that I have going on right now.
Well, here's what impresses me. You said you're a chemistry teacher, correct?
Yeah.
And you have totally stepped outside of your comfort zone of your chemistry classroom and your Petri dishes and your Bunsen burners. And I know everybody remembers the Bunsen burners and all that you're using to actually bring technology into the focus, because that's what's needed now. They're going to get the learning from you on the topic that's your area of expertise, but to actually, take the time and to make the effort to say, you know what, I need to go above and beyond and create a platform that's a resource for them. I think it's awesome. I really do. And I think that, if there's anyone out there who's listening who either has an interest and the knowledge to do so, it doesn't have to be that sophisticated. If you know how to use a particular platform, create some resources, some learning modules and something, to help people along. And I believe that people will share it and they will appreciate it. And I know that parents who are listening today appreciate it as well. So Joy, I'm going to bring Dr. McIver on. I think he's been listening and, he might even have a few things that he wants to add to the conversation. But, I think it's wonderful, isn't it, Dr. Mac? What is she's doing? You're muted. You're muted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It is. I enjoyed listening to you, Joy. I know we do have a mutual person in common, your husband.
Yeah.
My Morehouse brother. And I know you all are doing some wonderful things down in Georgetown County. So again, keep doing what you're doing. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Joy, I've had a text message to come in from someone who lives in Columbia, South Carolina. She wants to know whether or not you have any of these tutorials on YouTube.
I do not have any tutorials on YouTube.
Today you're going to start your YouTube channel. Today. It's easy. You're going to start your channel today.
This is so for me. So there are no tutorials on YouTube, but I definitely am working towards that.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be real easy for you to do that. So that's great. If you have any questions or any comments for Joy, please post them now. Also, before we roll out, we like to give Dr. Mack a final word as far as his COVID-19 updates. And then Ms. Joy, it was a pleasure having you on today. And anytime that we can help spread the word or, help facilitate anything with you, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. And just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work.
That's right. Thank you so much, Joy.
Thank you.
All right. So Dr. Mack, anything else you want people to know as we go into this next week?
Well, just, continue to do the things that we know can be done to be good stewards of the community. Protect yourself. We're seeing a lot more people who are, testing positive, but not necessarily getting sick. The average age of positive tests are between, the highest group between 11 and 30 years old. Those are not the people primarily that are getting really sick, but those are the people that appear to be, spreading COVID throughout the communities. So just be careful, be proactive, protect yourself, protect your families, protect your fellow community people.
Okay, awesome. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Mack, for pulling together all the charts. I really do appreciate it. I couldn't do it. I don't have a medical degree, and I'm not trying to get one. So I have to have to lean on.
We still got time.
Well, you know what? If you keep it up, I'm probably going to learn through you. So, I mean, that's basically it. But I also want to make a special announcement. The Whittemore Community Magazine is launching a summer enrichment initiative. We will make some more announcements and send out some information about it real soon. But it's the 2020 Summer Enrichment Initiative. That is a literacy initiative. And the focus will be on a book entitled Ghost Boys. And so there's a curriculum that's being created, and there's going to be a 3 or 4 week program. We're going to have registrations and signups. The teens will be, and this is for ages 13 to 17. We're going to have a discussion about this particular book. There's going to be some activities connected to it. And also there is going to be some incentive for our teens to participate. And so what we need in terms of community support for this particular literary initiative, number one is to talk to your teens about signing up. We will have a limited number of slots. It really does depend on a few things. Number two, it depends on our donor support. We definitely would like for anyone who's interested in helping us with this literary initiative to consider a donation. No donation is too large or too small. And this is all sponsored by the Whittemore Community Magazine. I will have information on the website, which is wcmagazine.net. And the information about the program and also how you can donate. All of the donations will actually support this particular reading initiative, and will also be a give back to our teens to support them as they're getting ready for the new school year. So I'd like to thank, of course, Brother Edward McQueen, who is the publisher of the Whittemore Community Magazine and the host of the show. And Marjorie McIver, of course, who is a community icon and former educator in Horry County Schools, and Ms. Jannar Falk, also a former educator and community icon in Horry County, and Sister Joella McQueen, who is Brother Edward's better half, and of course a history buff. We said, Dr. Matt, yeah, and a history buff. And so we have a couple of things that are outlined as far as components to this, but we're going to start with a literary initiative. I also have to thank your sister, Hannah McIver Sands, because she's actually brought to light this particular piece. I've already ordered my book. It's due here tomorrow, and I plan to read it so that I can be prepared. So I'm going to reach out to the network for some support for the activities and also for donations to help with what we want to do with these teens before they get ready to go to school. And I'm sure you'll appreciate the enrichment that they'll receive, and also just trying to instill some awareness in them as they start to navigate the future, especially a lot of everything that we've been going through in these past 6 months or so. So with that being said, Dr. Mack, I think that we've given them a lot today, and I'm sure you'll have some more for next week. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can continue to post them in the thread. And Dr. Mack, he's really good about looking back at the post to see if there are any questions, and he will answer them. And of course, I'll tag him in post just in case he misses it. But we'll do everything we can to answer your questions. And if there's anything in particular you'd like for us to do some research on, or just kind of create a conversation around, we'll be more than happy to do it. So with that being said, thank you so much, Dr. Mack, for being here again. On this Friday.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate you.
Yes. And to everyone else, please have a safe weekend. Stay vigilant, mask up, and just, make sure that you take care of yourselves. And wash your hands. That's right. Mask up, wash your hands. Okay. And we will see you again, 4:00 next week.
Yes.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.